The best salespeople in the world are the ones who do it without you even noticing. Everyone's a salesperson, especially if you're an entrepreneur. In the I'm Not Salesy podcast, join me, Cassie McKenzie, and my fabulous guests as we dive into the top strategies, mindset, and energetics around sales and money so that you can hear more, yes, I'm in, instead of crickets or getting ghosted. So if you're ready to fully book out your programs with aligned AF clients and have people chasing you down in your inbox, asking how to work with you, then subscribe to this podcast today and become not salesy too. Welcome back for another episode of the I'm Not Salesy podcast. I'm Cassie McKenzie, and I have a super fun guest today. And if you came over from the Topless Manifester podcast, then I talked a lot about manifesting in business. And so I'm so excited to be able to bring that into this episode today because I have Shilamida Kupershteyn, right? And I love it, today as my guest, and she is the goddess of gratitude. I am so excited. Shilamida is a spiritual transformation and healthy living lifestyle mentor. She has her own podcast too called 50 Shades of Shilamida, and she's branded as the goddess of gratitude. I love it too. It says you've studied massage and Reiki and acupuncture and holistic medicine for more than 13 years. And one of my best friends down here actually used to have a practice up in New York. Actually, she kind of goes back and forth a little bit, has other people running it, but does she an acupuncture practice. And I swear, like, I love being able to feel the energy running through your body. People are like, it's all made up. And I'm like, I don't really think so, because I used to have, I was seeing her because I had some issues with, like, my adrenals were just like becoming really burnt out. I've got 2 young kids too, I'm running a business and having like stress of life going on. So I love these conversations. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. And yeah, I know even when I started practicing acupuncture so long ago, I was like, oh my goodness, like it's magic.
Yeah.
Like I also could not believe that it was actually working. And because it seems so far-fetched that you could put these little needles in people and like miraculously they're better. But it's definitely real. It feels magical, but my whole entire life is full of magic. So there's nothing abnormal about that. And I'm really excited to be on your show today.
I am so excited to talk to you too. I feel like there's never, too much gratitude conversations in the world, especially, and you say like your whole life is filled with magic. So tell me a little more about that and how did that happen?
Yeah, so 15 years ago, you would have found me living on food stamps, broke, fresh, new, single mom. I was 250 pounds. I had a 18-month-old and I was a disaster. And I would look at other people's lives and be like, why are their lives like that? And my life is not. And I just kind of thought that I was doomed, like I thought that rich people were rich because they were supposed to be, and that I was not in that category. So that life wasn't meant for me. But there was something deep down inside of me that just believed that there was something different, that I was supposed to be something different, do something different. And I attracted a new friend into my world, and she came over to my apartment and she sat with me and she was just like, wow, you're like a really negative person. And I'm like,
Oh,
okay. My ego is like, okay. And, she just started pounding me with questions. And she's like, haven't you ever heard of the law of attraction? Haven't you ever heard of The Secret? And, all of those words I had actually heard before, which was interesting. I was probably about 26, 27 when I had this conversation with her. But when I was 21 years old, I had joined my first MLM company. And I was at one of their leadership things, and somebody was sitting with me at lunchtime and they said to me, you have to pick up the book, The Law of Attraction. And so I did. I bought the book. I think I read 3 pages. There were no pictures in it, and I put it on a bookshelf, right? And so when she said those words to me, I got up and I went to my bedroom where my bookshelf was, and I took the book off of the bookshelf and I brought it back into the room and I literally blew the dust off of it because it was 7 years later.
Yeah.
And then she started talking to me about The Secret. And so I had every excuse in the book, and I'm sure people listening can relate. I didn't like to read.
Yeah.
I didn't like to listen to CDs, right? Because I'm like, oh, I don't like to read. She's like, well, it's on CD set. So I got up and I went to my dining room, and in my dining room was the 6-piece CD set of The
Yeah.
Secret. It
Oh
was like
yeah. I had that one.
every single thing that I needed was at my possession. Like
Yeah.
all of the, quote
Mhm.
unquote secrets of life, like were already attracted to me. I was just not ready and open to receive it.
Yeah, totally. I had a similar experience because I think I got The Secret back in like 2009. I
Yep.
was living in San Diego and I had this bitch on wheels of a boss. Like she was so awful, so bad. And she actually made fun of me for listening to it. But I remember because I was the sales rep, I had Palm Springs and San Diego. So there was like a lot of days where I was in the car. It was before podcasts, you know. So I'd be like, oh, I think it was like disc number 4, The Secret to Money, or something like that. Was like always in there. And so I remember like, when I listened to it, I'm like, what the hell? I don't see a secret here. I mean, and I don't think I was like that much of a negative person back then. It was just like it wasn't hitting me right. But then 4 years later, it did. Like, and it hit like I think it was like a full body, like, oh my God, I get it now, that
Right.
kind of thing. But so that changed your life. And I don't want to generalize everybody from New Jersey, but I was telling you before we got on, like I spent a lot of time in New Jersey for because I was a sales trainer for Johnson and Johnson, and I was always up and down from there for like 10 years. And like you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of negative Nancy's and Debbie Downers in Jersey. I'm sorry, Jersey girls, but like
Yeah.
I'm sure it could have been hard to find that diamond in the rough because and I always found it funny. Like I never took I like it was like my entertainment. I had like these two best friends up there, and it was like I can't wait to hear what they're gonna say today, like that kind of thing.
I know everybody who hears I'm from Jersey, like they're like, you should be a real housewife of New Jersey. Like that's the way that it always goes. But you're right. I do think that Jersey has a bad rap. It's rough living here. I'm trying
Yeah.
to get out. Um, but yeah, I mean, that changed the whole trajectory of my life. I was ready, right? I was ready in that moment for a
Right.
change. I had broken up with my ex. I knew that that was not where I wanted to be. I was an event planner at the time. So I was doing these high net worth events, and I just didn't feel like I was living my purpose,
Yeah.
right? And my dad had passed away. I just had like this whole succession of things that had happened to me. With my son, I gained 100 pounds and I was just miserable.
Yeah.
So when she brought this to my attention, like I really didn't know that I was that negative
Yeah.
because you are surrounded by the people around
Right.
you, right? So in my surroundings, I was kind of normal. And, it was a big awakening for me.
I'm
And
glad you were willing to listen.
yeah. And I was really interested in diving deep. And so I started diving deep into all of these things. And I started learning Kabbalah and Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay. And every single thing that I was learning, the secret was the same,
Yeah.
or the underlying message was the same. And
Yeah.
that was gratitude. And I can tell you that, 15 years ago, 12 years ago, like I really wasn't grateful. I had a really hard time being grateful, right? Like you're living on food stamps, you're overweight, you're a single mom. Like, what the hell do I have to be grateful for? Was kind of my
Yeah.
thinking. And I didn't realize that I had it so good,
Yeah.
right? In the
Yeah.
moment, it was like so bad. But now, in hindsight, looking back, like I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. I had an air conditioner. There was a washer dryer across the street. And as much as like I hated bringing my laundry across the street, like I had clean laundry, right? And it was like I really started to break down my life that way. And every time I would catch myself complaining, because that was the whole point of that conversation. That conversation brought an awareness to me, right? So
Yeah.
like people that are listening to the show right now, what I invite you to do is I invite you to listen to your thoughts and to your conversations that you're going to have now for the rest of this day. And you can actually catch yourself in a negative thought and be like, oh, wait a second. Like, I don't want to think like that, or I'm
Yeah.
going to take that back, or I'm going to find something to be grateful for in this moment. And that's how I started to shift my life.
Oh,
The
wow.
shift happened in the awareness and in the consciousness. And then I really just started trying to be grateful for everything and anything that I could. Because the truth was, I was just taking things for granted, right? Like
Right.
sitting in a room with electricity and Wi Fi, we take that for granted. Like most
Yeah.
people are not grateful for that on a daily basis. But the truth is that there's people living in this world right now that don't have access to the internet, don't have
Yeah.
access to a computer, they don't have electricity, they don't have heat, they don't have air conditioning, there's people living outside, right? So every
Mhm.
time you get into a woe is me and you go into a victim mode of like, my life is not where it needs to be, if you can switch that thought with gratitude,
Yeah.
instead of going into the negative, you start to attract more positive things into your life instead of going into that negative trajectory.
I want to show you. Look, I made this. So I have a book on Amazon, and so I know how to publish on Amazon. And so I actually made like a second one. This is Grateful AF, a gratitude journal for sales queens on a mission. How
Oh
funny
my God, I
is that?
love
But
it. That's
like now that you're
adorable.
saying that, it has been, and I'm gonna be honest because this is the like I'm very unfiltered, right? Like filter free, tell you it has been, I'm ashamed to say this, but the last entry in here, February 16th. It's been over here on my desk and I see it every day and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'm grateful. But the act of sitting down, even for people who host a podcast and have a conversation about gratitude and who know and who coach on this kind of stuff, right? Still putting it in action, that's the big thing. So this is
Yeah.
going front and center, and it's the first thing that I will do when I get off of here and every single day waking up. But like, I'm aware that
Mhm.
I've avoided it, right? What do you have to say to people who maybe aren't connecting the dots there? I mean,
Yeah.
I feel grateful. Like there's been amazing things that have happened over the last, like, especially like since I've written in here, right? Like there's so much stuff that's happened that hadn't been happening even this time last year, right? And so, what do you have to say though for people who are like, I'm grateful, but I'm still probably not going to take action?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I was kind of the same way, right? Like, I started watching all the things and reading all the things, and
Yeah.
all the things told me to be grateful, but I had a really hard time with it. And I remember getting my first gratitude journal. And if I go back and I look at it, those first couple of weeks, they were a struggle. If I
Yeah.
wrote three things on a page, it was a lot, right? And so one day, my son was little. He was, around 2 years old. And I was like, Mikey, do you want to be grateful with me? And he was like, okay, mommy, whatever.
Oh,
And I started being grateful with him. And what had happened was I created a habit with him. And if you have children, this is an amazing exercise to do with them because children will hold the habit for you, right? They're
yeah.
creatures of habit. So the first night that I forgot to be grateful, he turned around to me and he was like, but mommy, we weren't grateful yet tonight.
Yeah.
And he would
Oh,
bring me back to the gratitude. And so he was a huge catalyst for me in my gratitude practice. And the problem was is that I had a split custody with him at the time. So on the nights that he was home, we would be grateful. And then on the nights that he wasn't home, it was like a maybe, maybe not kind of situation. And
yeah.
so now I have two other children. They are 8 and they're 9 at this point. And with those two kids, we have been grateful every single night of their lives. Like we have a gratitude practice at night. And if you heard the things that come out of my children's mouths, it is mind blowing. And they understand manifesting at this point. So, like to
Wow.
hear them, like my one son was having nightmares for a couple of weeks. And so the one night he was like, I'm so grateful that I don't have any nightmares tonight. And then he's like, no, I'm so grateful for my positive dreams. And I was like,
Ooh.
like I'm so blown away because they get it. and
Yeah.
they're little and they get it, And so, to your gratitude journal, I
I
have
love
my
it.
own gratitude journal.
Oh my God, I
This
love
was
it.
my very first bestseller on Amazon in 2017. And it's not only, it's a book, because in the beginning there's, wisdom to read, but then
I love
every
it.
single page, there is a day with a blurb with sample affirmations and then room for you to create yourself. And
Awesome.
the reason why I created this is because in the beginning, it was really hard for me. So
Yeah,
I get it. So
it
for those people that
is.
are listening that are like, well, yeah, I'm grateful. But when people say that to me, my reply is, do you say I am grateful at least 20 times a day? And they
Yeah.
kind of look at me and they're like, well, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, so if that's your response, then it means that you're not consciously stopping your day to say, I am grateful 20 times. And if you're not doing consciously, then chances are subconsciously you're
Yeah.
being more negative than you are being positive,
Yeah.
because most people are surrounded by really negative people, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Totally.
like how we started this conversation in the beginning of my journey when I was 30 years old and I was really starting to get onto this journey, I felt like I was the oddball out, right? Like I was the sore thumb in the midst of the sea of whatever. And now at 43, it's the norm for me to be around high vibrational, positive people. And
Yeah.
so I sometimes forget, like, I forget that there is this whole world of like negative Nellies walking around, because I've just chosen to surround my energy with really super positive people.
Yeah.
And it changes everything, and a lot of people have said to me, like in the beginning, like, how did you do it? How did you change your life? And the way that I did it is I literally cut out all of the negativity, or cutting out the cancer, they say, right? Like I cut out everybody and everything that was negative. Like at the time I had a lot of sorority sisters. I stopped hanging
Mm.
out with my sorority sisters. I stopped going to family functions, right? Because let's face it, who triggers you the
Yeah.
most? And your mother, your brother, your aunt, your uncle, right? Who's
Yeah.
got opinions on your life? Like those are the people that you want to start separating yourself from. Like
Hmm.
my oldest son is going through something really big right now, and he doesn't want to be around our family because everybody has an opinion. And
Yeah.
so what I say to him is, you have to be confident in your decision, and you have to be brave, and you have to be strong, and you have to move forward knowing that people are always going to have something to say to you, but it doesn't matter what they say, because you've chosen the path that you've chosen, and time will tell, right?
Yeah.
So my
Totally.
husband and I, when we first met, my husband had a wife, and it was a very tumultuous situation. And I was in the spiritual high, right? Like I had just
Yeah.
gotten my second Reiki attunement, and here I was trying to be the spiritual being, and I was manifesting, and like the greatest sin of all time landed upon me. And he would say to me, time will tell, Shill. Like time will show people that this is real, true love, unconditional love. And we're now together 12 years,
Yeah.
and we have the most beautiful love story of all time. We have the most incredible family of all time. And sometimes, like, I sit and I think about it, and I'm like, wow, like, all of the people who told me not to date him, and all of the people who told us what we were doing was wrong, and all the people, right? Like, all of that outside noise, had I listened,
Yeah.
I would have missed out on the greatest love story of all time, right?
Yeah.
Because society says that you're not supposed to live this way, and that you're not supposed to do these things, and we're constantly led by the outside noise. But what we forget to remember is that we came into this world with our own contracts, and we came here to complete our own stuff. And so that's not going to look like your neighbor next door, or your best
Mhm.
friend, or your sister, or your mother, right? Like, and
Right.
my entire life is, I've tried to fit into a box that I don't fit into.
Well, and I feel like there's this other component of like generationally, things are passed along. And it's because, that you've got that guilt of like, well, I'm supposed to be around my family, but I want to be different. But then if you keep surrounding yourself while you're trying to grow into another level, right? Because it does take some time to get that the footing underneath you, because there are a lot of like internal traumas that are very rooted in there. So there's a lot of inner work that you need to do to then be the person who can circle back and be around a circle of people who and be impenetrable, like there is a time period with that. But like, think about it. Like, if you're trying to change, but you keep surrounding yourself with the same mindset, like they're growing and they're creating like mini me's of themselves because they're surrounded by the same mindset too. And to be an outlier, you've got to be comfortable being an outlier, right?
Yep. Avant-garde, right? Before your
Yeah.
time. It's like if you are thinking and everybody around you is not thinking, right? Especially like with
Yeah.
what we just lived through the last couple of years, right? It's like a
Mhm.
lot of people
Right.
did things that
Yeah.
they didn't want to do because they didn't want to be the outlier and they
Yeah.
didn't want, and I'm so grateful for what we just lived through because what it allowed for me to do is it allowed for me to break away from the box.
Right.
And I pulled my children out, once they got sent home from quarantine and they never went back,
Yeah.
and had that not happened, I would have never pulled my kids and homeschooled them. But now, like, my children are the happiest kids of all time. And I don't have to worry about them learning about nonsense and learning about
Yeah.
stuff that is not
Yeah.
aligned with our values. And
Mhm.
but it's hard being the outlier and
Yeah.
being the one that, oh my God, your kids don't go to public school. No, my kids don't go to public school. And my kids do things different and we do things different. And we
Mhm.
travel all the time.
Love
My
it.
husband and I got married in November, and we've already been on 3 honeymoons, and it's March,
Yay.
right? And so I remember this one time when I was an
Congratulations, by the
acupuncturist.
way.
What? Thank you. When I was an acupuncturist, I had this one patient and she came in. I must have been pregnant at the time, so I wasn't traveling as much. And she started complaining about a friend of hers who traveled all the time. And she was like, I don't even understand how people could do that. I don't even understand how people could have the money for that. And I'm treating her and I'm thinking to myself, oh, her life sounds delightful.
I
Like,
know.
I would love to be doing that, right? And so I know that people look at my life and they're like, how is that even possible? But it's because this is what I've manifested. That
Yeah.
very first vision board that I made 15, 14, 13 years ago, whenever it was at this point, half of the vision board was travel. It was
Yeah.
like in my trajectory of life that I was going to travel. And several years ago, I had put it out there in the universe that I would be on an airplane every single month. And
Oh,
so that's
yeah.
exactly what the universe has delivered for me. I am on an airplane now every single month. And it's like people are like, I don't get it. And I'm like, okay, have you ever sat down and actually thought about the places that you want to go to? Oh,
Yeah.
no. Have you ever written a list? Like, I have a list from A to Z of all the places that I want to
You
visit
have
in the
to.
world,
I
right?
built it into a hypnosis.
See? So it's like if you're not focusing your attention towards those things, and those things are never going to happen for you. That's why you're sitting wondering why I'm doing it in my life and you're not doing
Right.
it in your life. And that's where the catalyst was for me. All of those years ago, I used to sit around and
So
wonder
true.
why them, not me. And why it wasn't me was because I wasn't dreaming that big. I didn't have
Exactly.
those aspirations. I didn't think it was possible for me. I didn't think I was worthy of it. So how was I going to find the love or travel the world or do all the things when I wasn't even thinking or aware or conscious
It's
of what
so
I actually
true.
desired?
No, it's so true though, because the people who sit there and wonder are the ones that aren't brave enough to go and find out.
Yep.
And there's so much that like it's simple, but like it's not, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Because you have to get out of your own head so much.
Yep.
So, and that's why you need to hire people who have done it and been there and understand it to tell you this is your mind telling you some bullshit right now. And you've got to just ignore it, because 95% of everything we do is automatic, right? It's your subconscious brain. So if I don't have a gratitude practice, and it's called a practice because it's not perfect yet, right? And if I don't have a gratitude practice yet, then I've got to create one. And guess what? It's not going to be easy because there's so much of my, subconscious brain that's like, well, no, oops, sorry. If you do that, then that's not safe. You know what I mean? If you do that right now, then it's not safe because that's new, and your subconscious doesn't want anything new happening. So I am so excited that we had this conversation. Tell everybody, where can they get your gratitude journal? I want to put that link in the show notes so that you guys can go to the show notes right now and order Shilamida's best-selling gratitude journal. I created mine because I needed one. Clearly I need one. So I was like, well, I know how to do this. I'll just pop it on there and then order one for myself.
That's amazing. That's
So, but
amazing.
where can they find yours? Because they'll get like all the background and everything for
Yeah.
how to create a practice in their life.
So my website is www.shilamida.com. It's Shilamida. All of my books are available on Amazon. I actually have 3 books that are available. One is the Gratitude Journal. The second book is called From Food Stamps to First Class, and it actually tells the story of how I
I want to
manifested
get
the
that
life that I'm
one.
living.
You.
And then the third book is a kid's book called I Am Grateful for My Life, because I do see what a true difference and gift it is to be my children.
Yeah.
And the fact that gratitude is like the basis of our life. Like I see the difference in them, and I
Mhm.
see the gratitude in them and the appreciation in them, and how they're manifesting. You can find me all over social media. I do have my own podcast show called 50 Shades of Shilamida. The reason why I called it that is because prior to COVID, I was the goddess of gratitude. And then during COVID, the angry side of me came out. And people were like, wait a minute, but you're supposed to be grateful and positive all the time. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, that's just my social media persona. But the real me has a lot of different emotions.
Range of
So
emotions. Oh my God. I love it.
so on 50 Shades, we talk about all the things. We talk about gratitude, religion, politics, like all the things that nobody wants to talk about, we talk about on my show, because it's important to have these conversations and to expand your knowing, and to,
Yeah.
see like what else is out there in the world. I hang out on Instagram, my story on 50 Shades of Shilamida, and I still have my old page, which is goddess_of_gratitude. And
Mhm.
I also hang out on Facebook at Shilamida Kupershteyn, soon to be Friedman, because I am changing my last name to my husband's name. And I am the Pinterest queen. So if you guys are on Pinterest, you'll find me there as well. And my
Oh, well,
show is on podcast and on my YouTube channel at 50 Shades of Shilamida.
well, thank you so much. I think this has
Thank
been so
you.
fabulous. You guys go find Sheila Mita. This is amazing. It'll change your life. And find her podcast too, 50 Shades of Sheila Mita. That'll be amazing. So thank you so much for taking the time to
Thank
talk with me
you.
today. And I am going to have your picture in my mind every day when I look at this, and I'm going to
Yeah,
do it myself
that
too.
makes me so happy.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Thank you.
If you've ever sat there and looked at your DMs and been like, oh my God, this is literally full of crickets, like there's nothing going on but the rent here. And you're like, oh my gosh, what does it take to actually have an inbox full of people wanting to work with me, having leads coming to me every day, having people saying, send me the link, and really have these results that you see other people having, and you just like think that there's something wrong with you because you're not getting it. If this is you, then listen up. I have the most amazing way to work together. And I feel like this is something that you don't have to experience, right? If you've posted up content every single day for months now and you're still not getting any inbound leads reaching out to you, and you actually want to fill your programs with ideal clients and have people saying, send me the link, and really build your business, but you feel like it should be working right now, then don't throw in the towel. Come to Mama Cass. I want to see you filling your programs with dream clients. I want you to feel like you're so completely confident when you're promoting your programs, and that you hear way more of a yes instead of getting ghosted, and you know exactly what to say during your sales conversations. And when you show up, whether it's in the DMs and you're talking to like the crazy amount of people that really want to work with you, or you're on a sales call, I want you to be able to get on the phone and get on sales calls with people who are already pre-sold saying, how can we get started without you even having to pitch them? And even when you do have to pitch them and you get to that point in the sales call, it's so easy breezy that it's just like, it's easy as breathing, right? I want you to know that this is possible because this month I'm starting with a group of experts, a group of coaches and consultants who really want to grow their business. And I'm going to teach you how to turn your coaching business into a sales machine, but one that's actually fun to run, right? Like the Maserati of sales machines, a Porsche, right? So we're going to go way past just giving you trainings and processes to create a steady flow of inbound quality leads. I'm actually going to be practicing scenarios with you so that you know how to close your sales, you know how to develop customer relationships, and you get real-time feedback on your actual DMs so that you start closing sales in the DMs and you start hearing more yes on your sales calls. And I'm even going to give you the tools to clear out the old fears and beliefs and the frustrating emotions that have prevented you from making sales so that you start stacking money in your bank account. There's nothing else like this online. I expect this first group to fill up really quickly, and I want you to send me a DM on Instagram or on LinkedIn with the word sales. Tell me that you heard this on the podcast and I will get you the details because I want to see you wildly successful. I want this ripple effect to really take off. It makes me happier to see your results than to see my own, because it means that this ripple effect is happening and that the work we do together is going far beyond just the call that we are on, that it's going on to impact your clients and impact the lives surrounded by them as well. This is the vibe. So this is what we're doing in the Sales Queen Takeover. You're going to learn how to attract leads that are aligned with you, that feel great working with. You're going to learn how to do this in a way where you're able to easily close them on the sales calls, easily close in the DMs, so that you can get to work helping the people who need you most, and that you can have an insane amount of impact on the world on a daily basis. So I look forward to seeing you there. I am so excited for this to get started, and I can't wait to hear what you create. If you loved this episode of I'm Not Salesy, then go ahead and hit subscribe so that you're notified of the next episode. And also leave a 5-star rating and a review. And if you send it to the link in the show notes, we will send you a present in return. We also love to feature reviews on the podcast as well. So we'd love to feature yours. So go ahead and send a screenshot to the inbox and come find me on social media. I love hearing what you're up to and how you're becoming not salesy too. I'll see you in the next episode.